Let this meeting come to order. Welcome to the February 26th meeting of the Rutherford County School Board. Leading us in Pledge of Allegiance, we have several students representing us in the Scope Congress here March 9th. And with us is from Blackman High School, Megan Gardner, from Central Magnet, Nash Binkley, from Siegel High School, Ty Stewart, from Siegel High School, Brianna Wheeler, and from Smyrna High School, Lauren Schumacher. If we could get you all to come forward and lead us in the pledge.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, students. If you would join the board in a moment of silence. Thank you. Okay. Had a work session last evening and covered most of these topics. But if there's anything new, we'll move to approval of the agenda.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Holliday and second by Mr. Esser. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Moving to approval of the consent agenda. Moved by Mr. Young, seconded by Mr. Hodge. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Joyce, I see no visitors. Okay. Mr. Odom, number 7.
Number 7 is a recognition. I'm going to ask Rutherford County's JROTC Commander, Mr. Colonel Harry Houchins, to step forward. He's going to honor a gentleman tonight that really is quite indispensable to our program. It seems like I've known him for a while. He does a great job, but I won't steal your thunder. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you, sir. We're here tonight to honor my right hand at the Junior ROTC department, and that's Staff Sergeant Kenneth Ford. He's been with me since 2001. And at this time, would you come forward, Sergeant, and you also, Mr. Odom, and I'll read his citation. I'd like to add that we have approximately 1,200 cadets in the Junior ROTC program, and all of them are in uniform. And Sergeant Ford is responsible for approximately $1 million worth of equipment that we have at the various schools to count the uniforms. And he has basically kept me out of jail. I learned a long time ago in my career that you hire an exceptional person and then get out of the way. And so he's in charge of supply. Colonel Houchins does not do supply, as they can testify to that. So I'm extremely blessed, and so is Rutherford County School. And having said that, I will read. Department of the Army, Mr. Kenneth E. Ford is presented the Commander's Award for Public Service for superior achievement while serving as a military property custodian for Rutherford County Board of Education. His exceptional management of the Junior ROTC supply system is marked by selfless attitude and a willingness to expand his every effort to achieve the very best in Rutherford County schools. His intense dedication to duty, Personal sacrifice and uncompromising standards of conduct have resulted in zero deficiencies for the past 13 annual supply inspection. Mr. Ford's commitment to excellency brings great credit upon himself and Rutherford County. And I might add that he volunteers to come with the Riverdale High School football team. Well, you know, he spends a lot of time, and he's very active in the community also. So, thank you for the time.
Thank you.
Sure do enjoy us doing that.
Yes, that is. It's a well-deserved honor. I mean, it's a lot to track, what he is.
And this next item, number 8, I thoroughly enjoy each year and have for several years, Mr. Odom.
You want to do that one?
No, sir, go right ahead.
Okay.
I think they'd appreciate the director of schools introducing them.
Okay, we're introducing tonight the 2015 Tennessee School Boards Association, the TSBA Scope Student Delegates for us, and the Tennessee School Board Association, 2015 Scope Student Congress on Policies in Education Conference will be held at MTSU on Monday, March the 9th, 2015. The following delegates will participate. Blackman High School is Megan Gardner. Blackman High School, Narita Calaxio. Central Magnet, Waja Chandra. Central Magnet School, Nash Binkley. Oakland High School, Cameron Bueller. Oakland High School, Jordan Fullerton. Siegel High School, Ty Stewart. Siegel High School, Brianna Wheeler. And Smyrna High School, Lauren Schumacher. And the chaperone is Allison Powell, Central Magnet School. Would you come up to the mic just a minute, students? So we want to kind of get the camera to see you and see who you are. Now, would each one of you step at the mic and say your name correctly this time, and kind of tell us what you're looking forward to in this this event? Anyway, just start.
Go ahead, Megan.
My name is Megan Gardner. I'm from Blackman High School, and I'm really looking forward to just hearing other people's opinions. I know I have strong opinions, so maybe getting to know other students through their opinions, and I know that's what I'm excited about.
I'm Lauren Schumacher from Smyrna High School, and I'm just excited to attend the conference and to be able to really understand how our education system works and to really play a part in hopefully making some decisions that will be helpful to it.
I'm Ty Stewart from Siegel High School, and I'm just looking forward to getting to voice my opinion and attend this stuff. It's a good opportunity.
My name is Nash Binkley. I go to Central Magnet High School. I'm looking forward to the debate and sharing ideas with my fellow students.
My name is Brianna Wheeler. I'm from Siegel High School, and I'm looking forward to being able to interact with other students from around the whole entire state to see how they view these different things, and I'm excited for the opportunity.
This may be a future school board, since they're going to study and participate in the school board policy session, so we might be looking part of the future of Rutherford County and school board sometime.
Well, I've certainly enjoyed the years of having the opportunity to moderate students like yourselves. Hopefully, I may get to be with one of your groups, but I can assure you, you'll have a good time. You'll enjoy the mock school board session. You may be a school board member. You may be the director of schools. You may be an irate parent. Last year, I played an irate grandfather, and I'm really pleased that I did not wind up on YouTube. Because I guess I enjoy being an actor. I don't know. So, but I guarantee you'll enjoy yourself, and I hope if you see me before I see you, you'll make sure that I know you're there. So please, but again, I guarantee an interesting day and a fun day too. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And if you'll hang around for a little while, you can kind of see what roles you're going to be playing here for that evening. So, again, thank you for participating. And number 9, Mr. Odom.
Number 9 is under financial matters, and this is a request for additional staff move to the $35 per month phone reimbursement. Mr. Zago is requesting that Tyra Pilgrim, our Instruction Department Career and Technical Education Coordinator, be added to the list of those who are eligible to receive a $35 per month reimbursement towards the cost of their personal cell phone for work purposes. Ms. Pilgrim is our new CTE coordinator, replacing recently retired Kay Nixon. This position requires her to be out in the schools on a regular basis. Recommended approval. The motion is to approve adding Tyra Pilgrim, the CTE coordinator, to the list of those who are eligible to receive a $35 per month reimbursement towards the cost of their personal cell phones for work purposes.
So move. Second.
Moved by Mr. Jordan, seconded by Mr. Holliday. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. All right. Motion passes. Number 10 is insurance update. I, along with Mr. Sandvig and Ms. Barnes, attended the monthly insurance meeting at the courthouse. Mr. Sandvig, I think you're going to make a presentation for us.
Self-funded claims, we're up not quite 3%, which is good, but we tend to look at an 18-month period when we're looking at setting rates. On the 18-month period, more at 8%. So we'll probably next month we'll be talking setting rates. And for the 2014 plan year, we went up more at 12%. So yeah, I do anticipate and will build into the budget some kind of an increase. One change that was made today for the wellness requirements that you have to meet or pay for our folks, it's a little over $30 a month since it's a 10-month charge for us. We deferred the health coach program. That was going to be into the calendar year 2016. We deferred that at least 1 year. We took it off the agenda for the year 2016 to be in effect for 2017 insurance. We have to plan a couple of years ahead there. And can you think of anything?
The request to bid those services, do those affect us?
They will affect us. One of the things that they will be looking at is a newer version of the enrollment software for open enrollment. But we have, every year we have several bids that go out. We tend to do 3-year bids. But the insurance, the liability, property casualty, we bid that out every year. But a lot of the other pieces will be 3-year bids.
The safety consultant services, if they hire someone to go into our schools, would that be one individual or a group that would have to go through background checks in order, or would they do that before student times or after student times?
Probably largely during student times.
So they would, I mean, I assume they understand that whoever is hired would have to go through our screening process.
And we would check on that and make sure we were covered on
That was my thought when they were discussing that part of it. Okay.
I remember a long time ago having someone that would walk through our building from that department. This would not be new. Did we stop it for a while and then it?
They've had some trouble keeping the individuals who have been trained for that.
And I think they also thought there would be a cost saving by subbing it out, if you will. So I enjoyed the insurance meeting. I'm not sure that most of you would.
Mr. Chairman, I always have to preface a question, since I taught for so many years, that I'm not on the county insurance program and never have been. So with that said, can you tell me anything about possible price increase for the insurance for retired employees? We're not that far down the road yet.
We are not that far down.
Okay.
For this insurance year that began in January, for pre-65 retirees, we started blending them in with our regular employee model. So whatever increase regular employees have, that group of retirees would have, and we have not had any discussions on
Plus 65.
retirees.
Okay. Thank you.
We've had some lively discussions in the past.
Yes.
Yes, we have.
Anyone else regarding the insurance meeting that was today at 1 o'clock at the courthouse? Okay, we'll move on to our Tennessee Legislative Network update with Mr. Hodge.
Thank you. I've run copies, or had Ms. Michaels run copies of things that are going on within our state legislation. The first two sheets there, as everybody can probably notice, the first one's the Senate Bill 128. That was the one that energy efficient grants and everything to charter schools that Senator Tracy, or I guess the Senate committee pulled this week. So I don't know if it'll come back up or if it's an issue that's dead right now, but I don't think we have to worry about it for a little bit. The second one is the one Mr. Odom responded to, and Odom, if you want to say a few words on that.
Our concern was that some of the language in it was questioning whether or not we could accept federal grants and how that would be administered. So my question basically was to, I actually sent it to Representative Sparks. This is not in an education bill, by the way. It's not under the education that's going through. It's an intergovernment or something like that this one's being covered under, that it did not impact our Carl Perkins Career and Education Act, because that's our fundings that we've been receiving grants directly from. That is how we built a lot of our mechatronics programs. We also used to replace equipment, upgrade equipment and that sort of thing. So some of the language was a little bit loose, and so did not hear anything from Representative Sparks. I did hear back from the assistant to Senator Ketron, who is sponsoring on the Senate side. It's Cassidy here, same bill on the Senate side, and said that they had been contacted by a number of others with some concerns about the bill. When it finished its House or came through the House, they were going to take a closer look at it and the language in it when it arrived in the Senate for those particular hearings. So I guess we'll kind of have to wait and see, but it's something we just need to keep in front of us.
All right. The next sheet there basically is the two actual committees. As everyone knows, the House has been split up this year. Administrative and Planning and Instruction and Programs Committee. A lot of those, as you can see, are just resolutions on those. But if you go over to the next page where you see the check marks, I believe those are the ones that we ought to be concerned with. You look down on really the first page down there of the check marks. One that requires local boards of education provide financial information concerning expenditures for lobbying and professional associations. I don't know what they're after on this, but some of the board members may be a whole lot smarter than me trying to figure out what they're fishing for or trying to get at, but I don't think it's none of the business what we do as far as that end of it goes. But anybody has any strong feelings one way or another?
Isn't this kind of just a revival of the one last year? The
I
TSB
believe
and Acton, it seems like it's quite similar.
It's got a lot of it in it, but I would ask each board member or whatever, if you feel strongly about it, to contact by email or letter or whatever. The next one, House Bill 1049, we're back to dealing with vouchers again, so like I said, you may want to give them a few words on that one. House Bill, next page over, 17 there, House Bill 0398, extends the date of the repeal of the Virtual Public Schools Act. Mr. Odom, you may speak to that.
That's the online school, the public K-12 education that's sponsoring, if you remember that one. In the last 2 or 3 years, they've been coming in last place in student performance across the state. When you look at the value added, and the negative points is 20, 30 points below what's expected. In other words, you expect, if you gain a year's in knowledge in a year of school, you get a 0 for your value added. In other words, it's expected. If you gain more than what's expected, it's a positive number. If you gain less than expected, it's a negative number. So this online school is running, and I can show you the numbers in comparison. It runs last place in the state out of 1,300-something elementary schools. It'll be the last, that sort of thing. And also, the legislature actually, and the governor said that they would close it at the end of this year, and the commissioner of education did actually, I think, to be corrected, said they would close it at the end of this year if they did not show more improvement. But this apparently is a bill to try to extend it 4 more years.
Flip on over to the House Education Instruction and Program Subcommittee. Bear in mind, all this stuff is happening next week. So if you look at House Bill 0125, as far as charter schools go, it looks like they're extending that too. Is that correct, Mr. Odom?
Yes, that's my understanding. You know, they had, one of the bills was, if you opened a charter school, it had to perform. If you're on the state's priority list, you're in the bottom 5% of the state in performance, is what that says. And so what is being introduced here, that rather than closing them when they're bottom 5% after a period of time, they want to extend it further. So kind of the same thing with a virtual school.
House Bill 0036, next page over, number 8. I want to let Mr. Odom explain that one also.
And if you remember, you voted, it's been probably 4 years ago, Tennessee passed a law that the TCAP score and the course scores had to be a percentage of your final grade, if you remember. Mm-hmm. And we voted 20% was the amount we had for our K through 6, and our 7 through 12, it's 25% of their final score. So what this particular bill would do would give you more flexibility of whether you include it and how you would include it if you want to include it in the final grade. Of course, what's happening now, there's some questioning as the standards change, that sort of thing changes. Where are we on counting that as part of the scores? You know, how aligned is the test to what we're teaching or something like that? So that's what's bringing up the questions associated with it.
House Bill 0003. I think that's mainly dealing with the new standards, if I understand it correctly. So I take it that's probably where they're setting up committees.
That's where you set up the committee. This was the one I mentioned to you that has a really expensive fiscal note attached to it. It seemed like a year out, it's over $3 million, and It sets up an ongoing commission of like $97,000 a year. I have heard that this may actually be part of the administration's bill. I don't know. No one has said that, but I did hear that as part of a discussion. So it's the setting up the standards to replace Common Core. That's what this bill is for. And a committee that would do that.
It looks like there's several of them that have signed on to it also. Carried, I guess. And the last thing I have is I'm sure everybody received what Ms. Moore sent us this week on the federal stuff that could come down the pike that could affect us. The HR 5, is that correct, Ms. Moore?
Yes.
HR 5. I took time to read it, and I don't understand all the mechanics of how it all operates and how it comes into play, but just what I read was enough I think it could have an effect on us. So Ms. Moore may want to elaborate more, but I would encourage all the board members to take a look at it, take a good hard look at it, and we'd have to reply to the federal people, or maybe let Mr. Holliday know. But I think it's something we need to look at.
Mr. Hodge, I appreciate your bringing that back up. And something that you mentioned a little earlier to me that made a real impact was the fact that we have a responsibility, I think, as a board, not only when we have legislation like this pending that could adversely affect our kids, our school systems, our local control, if you will, which is always a concern. But we have, I think, a responsibility, too, to educate our constituents and know as much about these as we possibly can so we can make recommendations. So if the board doesn't mind me taking a few minutes, there's a couple things I would like to share about this.
Is this on the HR 5?
Yes.
That's you and Mr. Holliday piggyback on that.
Okay.
Let's finish up with the state legislation.
Very good.
I've got, after you're through, Mr. Hodge, I have one other caveat whenever you're through.
I'm good. The only reason I brought it up because it can come back to the state. That's the only reason I brought it up. So other than that, I'm good.
Of course, we were supposed to meet with our local legislators last week, and weather didn't permit. Also, during that time, the TSBA board, of which I'm a member, we were supposed to meet at the TSBA office and go over the 122 education bills that are out there. And so what we did over a two-evening conference call is the board discussed each bill, and TSBA the executive board has taken a position to either oppose or support or not have an opinion. And we've done that on the 122 bills. All of you, if you don't, I'll make sure that I forward, if I get it before Mr. Hodge, or Mr. Hodge, if you get it before me, Lee Harrell is going to forward that to you, if you would share with the other board members. And if you disagree with the executive board's opinion, then you need to let Mr. Hodge, as our representative, know so he can let TSBA know as the representative. So, again, 122 of them, I believe. So it took a while to go through them. Thank you, Mr. Hodge. Anything else for the state legislation? Okay. Mr. Holliday, you had the floor for the work session. Do you have anything to add from the other night, from last night?
No, I'll yield. The discussion we had in work session was sufficient for my report.
Okay. Thank you, and that was very detailed, and appreciate you being as involved in it as you have been. Ms. Moore, you have the floor.
Okay, well, thank you. And I haven't heard anything. H.R. 5 was, which is actually the bill that I think they're referring to as the Student Success Act. was supposed to go to the floor for a vote today, but I don't know if it ever did. I hadn't heard an update before I came in here this evening. But I just thought I'd kind of summarize a couple of things, at least that I've garnered from this. Again, in an effort just to kind of help educate everyone. And again, I always emphasize that everybody should do their own research, obviously, and form their own opinion. But there are a lot of strong opinions out there opposed to H.R. 5, and I'd like to kind of elaborate a little bit why. One of the things I found real interesting that's happened in the last couple of days is Congressman Desjarlais actually posted something on his Facebook page yesterday about this bill, and if the board will allow me to, I'd like to read to you what he had posted and kind of give you a rundown of the results. He posted yesterday evening, he says, as of right now, it looks like we will be voting on H.R. 5, the Student Success Act, tomorrow. I would like to hear from parents, teachers, and those knowledgeable with our state's education system about whether or not I should support this legislation. I'm going to refrain from posting talking points from groups either in favor or opposed to this bill because I'm really only concerned about your opinions. I don't mind saying I'm leaning as a no, but I will always defer to you. For those who are not familiar with H.R. 5, it is a reauthorization of No Child Left Behind, among other things. The results of his poll to his constituents through that post, my understanding is he cut it off at a little over 600 responses. And out of those responses, there were only 2 or 3 that indicated they wanted him to support this bill. The rest of them were all absolute resounding no's. And of course, I would like to think that responses to that kind of a post from a congressman hopefully came from, or at least the majority came from, people that are educated or understand what this act is about. The article that I shared with you all yesterday, the lady that wrote the article, her name is Anita Hogue, and she's a lecturer, and she's also a professional educational researcher. She's also one of the authors of the book called Educating for the New World Order. And I'm just going to read real quickly a couple of comments out of her article, and then again would just encourage everybody to look a little further themselves. One of the things she's got in here, she says, H.R. 5, excuse me, provides for the expansion of charter schools as the sanctioned alternative for schooling. She's got H.R. 5 by design eliminates local and state representation government by removing the state's rights and local control of education and surrenders our children's education and future to the dictates of the federal government. H.R. 5 forces private and religious schools to provide services through an approved state list of providers, eliminating the freedom for private and religious schools to teach students by their own standards and curriculum. There was one more, if you'll bear with me here just a moment. I think this was probably her most telling comment to me. She says, H.R. 5 by design eliminates local and state representative government by removing the state's rights and local control of education and surrenders our children's education and future to the dictates of the federal government. So I'll end with that. If anyone has any questions or if we want to talk about it further, but this piece of legislation has the potential to be, I think, very damaging and take away the things that we've strived so hard for, because we know what's best for our children, not the federal government, and I think we're all in agreement with that. So I would like to see the board take a position on this. So. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Moore. Mr. Holliday, of course, we all know that all of the federal mandates, to my knowledge, a federal mandate has never been fully funded, to my knowledge. They tell us what to do and how to do it and when to do it, but they don't give us enough funding to actually accomplish it. In lots of strings. Does H.R. 5 address any of the funding patterns with Title I and students that have challenges?
Mr. Odom and I discussed last night in the work session about how H.R. 5 has a different approach on funding Title I And it's something that we also see in the write-ups that are currently on the Senate side of the reauthorization as well. The best way to describe it is, as Senator Alexander describes it, pin the money to the shirt of the child in need. So if we have a school that has 25% free and reduced lunch population, then a federal funding, we'll call it $2,000 per student, would in essence be pinned to that student's shirt, and if they show up in that school, then the school has the ability to use that money. That's different from the way we do it right now. The way we do it right now, we've identified 10 Title I schools in our system. They have an excessive majority of free and reduced lunch population, and it is indicative of a cultural, economic need in that school system. Once the resource is in place, Mr. Odom has pointed out how important it is for that resource to be free to be able to help anyone in need. Mr. Odom has made an excellent point, and I think it's an appropriate point, but I think that it's one that is not coming through to the federal perspective, that if we have 25% of those resources at a 25% free and reduced lunch population, we may not actually have enough resources to accomplish anything, because it takes kind of that pooled effort. We have to concentrate our effort in order to have an impact. That's why we concentrated in the 10 Title I schools. That being said, we do that because that's the way the program is set up right now. That's the way the guidelines are written right now. How we accomplish it in the future, I am confident that we can be resourceful enough to figure out a way to help our students regardless. But it may indeed be different. And in this particular case, different would not be good.
Again, it's my hope at some point in time that as they send these mandates down, that they'll actually, if they want it, if they have an endeavor they want us to accomplish, that they actually fund, enough to get it accomplished.
It's always good to kind of examine what are the motivations and what are the underlying intent of this, and I know that a lot of the criticism really delves into that, and I think that that's appropriate right here, because the idea of attaching the funds for Title I, for a free and reduced lunch population or something of that nature, to the individual student, that means that those funds could indeed go to a charter school or something of that nature. Right now, it's up to that local education association to identify where those Title I schools are. Charter schools are typically not being identified as a charter school or as a Title I school, so Title I federal funding is having a hard time to find it to those schools of choice that are very, very popular in talking about, and yet we see the absolute evidence of them being rather ineffective in actually educating. As we talked about, here's legislation saying a failing school, we're going to prop it up for a little while longer. Another failing idea of a virtual school, we're going to prop it up for a little while longer. I think it's a pretty apparent effort to attach the funding to the individual student that we're going to try and funnel some federal dollars over to these charter schools to prop that idea up for a little while longer. At the same time, there's absolute evidence in the New Orleans school system where charter schools are all but the norm. In the wake of Katrina, they went to nearly a complete charter format, and it has proven to be completely ineffective. No discernible advantage educationally from where they were in the past, and actually some detriment. We're concerned about what the charter model does as far as segregating different populations because of the choice that charters have to be able to cherry pick and select the students that they would have. The answer to all of these issues is excellent public schools. That's what we need. That is the appropriate and proper model, and we've got to put all of our efforts into that. We cannot afford for public dollars to go to private schools. We cannot afford for public dollars to go to charter schools. Those do occur from time to time, and there are rare examples where they're effective, but they are by far the exception. 90% of the students in our country are educated through public education. That's where our investment needs to be.
And, excuse me, another key is local governance. No one knows better than the local elected representatives. So, I see that trying to be pulled not only from the federal standpoint, but also, locally, that our state legislators tend to try to take that local control away also.
As we think about just how evil this is and things of that nature, I did want to point out that Rutherford County Schools, we receive 38% of our funding through local areas. We receive 53, almost 54% of our funding from the state, and we receive just over 7% from the federal government. And so, again, as I talk about these things, for me, it's really that curriculum area where the Department of Education, the Secretary of Education, leverages the influence of the current waiver circumstance, where we don't have any legislation from a stagnant, stalemated Congress that can't pass anything, that results in the Secretary of Education negotiating with our Commissioner of Education and coming up with a waiver to appointed officials, not elected, not representative at all, and the errors and problems that have resulted from that, and the public distrust that has come from that. When we have elected officials that pass good legislation, and I don't suggest that H.R. 5 is good legislation, but we need for our Congress to do their job and not leave this to the Secretary of Education and the Commissioner of Education and this waiver program that we've been in for 7 years.
Any other questions for Mr. Holliday regarding the Federal Relations Network? Thank you, Mr. Holliday. Thank you, Ms. Moore. We will now move to general discussion. Anybody have anything? I think, Mr. Odom, you have a couple of things.
I've got one thing.
Okay.
We talk about bills and legislation and so many other things and dollars and cents and all. Every once in a while I get an opportunity to hear about something in instruction and teaching, which kind of spurs me on. I enjoy. I heard from our coordinator of special ed, Mrs. Shirley Bell, this week, and from Mr. Zago. We had a case where a person visited ours with under special education student. They sometimes you have an administrative law judge. If somebody says basically that they are question what we're doing, is the program effective or not, the state provides these, and then they'll bring in sometimes an expert. And we had this recently. We've had an expert come in that actually came from Alabama, and a person that goes all over the country, different places, and looks at programs and to see how they're performing, and especially associated with response to intervention, which is the new program, that we put the people in place of. So I'm going to yield to Mr. Zago and let him tell you what the lady that this independent person from out of state that came in and looked at our program for 2 days, what she said when she left. Mr. Zago.
Actually, Ms. Bailey and Ms. McLeod had both talked to me about this, and they had a visit. This outside consultant that was ordered by the courts to visit and review some of these programs for a student of ours. And we're always a little concerned about those types of things when those things happen. But this was some great news that we got, and I shared with a couple of you guys, Mr. Odom, yesterday. This outside consultant had visited for a couple of days, Ms. McLeod, and spent some time with one of our schools evaluating that RTI system and the instruction that we've been providing here in Rutherford County for all the students that are receiving those kinds of additional helps. She said, this is basically a quote from her, about every few minutes I wanted to jump up and say, yes, that's how it's supposed to be done. Yes, finally I've met a school or been at a school in a school system that actually know what they're doing. She said she wanted to jump up and just say, thank you for doing it right. And at the end of the day, she said, my recommendation is we've got a system that knows what they're doing. They're providing excellent instruction for the students here, you know, and couldn't ask for more. And said in all of her travels and all of the consulting she's done in these types of cases, we're the best at what she's saying. So that was wonderful news to hear. Ms. McLeod, I don't know if you have anything you'd like to add, but even when I got that from Ms. McLeod, which is outside of education, of course, we've drug her into education, but she said that same type of thing. It's exciting for her to hear that, and where someone from even outside of our state is saying that the programs that we're providing our students is exceptional and exactly what we should be doing for children.
I think that just reinforces what this board already knew, but thank you for sharing that with us.
I like when somebody independent says it,
Right.
it's not a part of us or connected with us, comes in from somewhere else and has all these comparisons, to then say, you're the best I've seen. That's, I understand that's what she said.
Pretty nice pat on the back, so congratulations.
We have a whole lot of folks with Mr. Duke, Ms. McLeod, Ms. Bell, and a lot of teachers, interventionists, and coaches out there that make all that happen. They're in the trenches. They're basically the boots on the ground that are doing the good work and fighting the good fight for our students.
Great.
Mr. Chairman, it may be that all board members got this invitation, but I know that I got it in the mail to an event happening on March the 6th, and I think it's at the Rutherford County Courthouse. It's a speaker that's coming in. He's also speaking March the 5th up in Hendersonville, and it's kind of an education perspective. And as I looked at it, I thought, I'm going to make this worth my time. I can't be there on the 6th, but I'm going up to Hendersonville on the 5th. And just wanted to bring that to the board's attention. And I believe Miss Jackie Archer had sent that to me, and you might find that lingering out there in an old email, or if anybody from the public would like to search that online, you may find details as well.
Okay. How many more snow days are we going to have, Mr. Odom?
4 after today. Well, no, we have 4 in reserve that's stockpiled, put it that way. Let's hope we don't use any more. But
I think we need to make a public announcement that the board has no say in. I looked at my emails, and I had an email from someone at 1:55 in the morning asking for school not to occur today, and I sent back, I do not.
probably the same one I received.
Probably so. All right. Yeah. Anybody else have anything else?
No, this federal government and charter schools and private schools and that, I just see all kinds of trouble coming down the pike if this proceeds too much further. And really, maybe for the benefit of these students over there, this is an incredibly complicated, education is incredibly complicated. I think all of us know that. But it's, on one hand, it's really fairly simple. The county commission funds it, and we're responsible for our share, which is $308 million this last year, the year that's going on right now. Well, if the Rutherford County taxpayers pay in property taxes and sales taxes, and the state of Tennessee sends us a lot of money back, and then we send that money to a school, a private school, and they spend it however they want, I see a massive lawsuit here somewhere. I mean, we're responsible for Blackman High School. We're responsible for Smyrna High School, Schumacher, and proud of it, and many other schools. But to collect tax money from the Rutherford County taxpayer and then send it to some place where we can't follow, can't hire personnel, can't set up programs, can't control the curriculum, That's pretty foreign to me now. I don't know how y'all feel about it, but I just thought I'd throw that thought out there.
The taxpayer has no one to hold accountable.
That's correct.
Mr. Jordan, the point you make also goes to what alternative is there to H.R. 5? And we start looking at other ideas, because inevitably you say, H.R. 5's got this problem, this problem, this problem, and so therefore vote no on that. And Representative Desjarlais may indeed do that. But we need something that gets it away from the Secretary of Education. So it's, you come to the place where you say, well, then where's the alternative? And some suggest an alternative that says, federal government, send the money down here to the local education association, Rutherford County Schools, we'll make the good decisions. For me, I say, if that's the case, just lower my taxes and don't send it to Washington to send it back to me to make the decision. That's a better idea. And so the very concept that money is going to go to Washington and then come back with no strings attached, it's just kind of nonsensical. It's not going to happen that way. So what we have to do is we have to be constantly vigilant that we never, ever, ever have strings that we cannot live with or endure. If we see those, then that's something we absolutely need to get in touch with our federal legislators and tell them to change it. Again, I point out, Rutherford County does such an excellent job educating, $1,200 per student less than the state average. We are so efficient with the monies that we spend here in our county, and it's not small by any means. 7.8% comes from the federal government. No matter what they do in Washington, we're going to find a way to have excellent education in Rutherford County.
Mr. Hodge.
I'll piggyback what Mr. Holliday's saying. I'd like to just reiterate what I said earlier in regards to these state bills that are coming up this next week. A lot of them could have a big bearing on us, and I really feel like I said, each board member, if you feel strong about it, email them over the weekend or text them or whatever, because it will make a difference. I just hope we're not too late on some of this stuff. I know we are on some of it, that it just keeps building up as time goes on, but I know we don't meet next week, correct? Or whatever's coming down the pike the week after that. Each board member go online and do the same thing. Anything you see that bothers you or whatever, let your legislators know. I mean, I think that's our duty from this end of it. We can't help with. We can try to control what's going on here, but we can't take care of what's going on in Memphis and all this other all these other areas that are having problems, other than, as Mr. Jordan says, we're funding them. Let them fund their own problems, and I feel strongly about that. That's the reason we're dealing with the charters, and that's the reason we're going to be dealing with they can't take care of them. So, like I said, read what you got, and like I said, contact your legislators and let them know how you feel.
And if you get into a bill and you're not quite sure how it affects public schools, make sure you have Mr. Odom on speed dial. If you can't get Mr. Odom, get Mr. Zago. Would like to always strongly advise or ask all of us to stay in touch with our local legislators and stay in touch with our federal. Because if they don't hear from us, they'll assume we're going along. They'll assume that we're supporting whatever they're doing if we don't tell them otherwise. Did you have something else, Mr. Jordan?
I'm thinking basketball.
Okay.
I know the Oakland girls won today, and I know Central won last night. So
Yes, congratulations.
I'm assuming that Blackman won. They had a nice lead when I came in the door. Is that correct, or did they win? Well, okay, so all three of those teams were one step from the state tournament, so it'd be great if they all three
You
made it.
watching it on your phone? Good. Well, good board meeting. Mr. Hodge, thank you for the information. Mr. Holliday, Ms. Moore, thank you for your perspective, too. Students, looking forward to seeing you here, and I guess be a couple of weeks, about 10 days or something? About 10 days. And, I'll have hurt feelings if you don't acknowledge my presence, so. But you'll have an enjoyable time, and I think you'll be able to glean quite a bit from it.
Can I ask one question of the board?
No, sir, after the board adjourns, we'll be accessible to you. Okay? Thank you. Anything else from the board? Okay. Without any further ado, we stand adjourned.